I always hated weddings. Not because I disliked love. I once believed in it with every fiber of my being. But because weddings reveal more about people than they realize, especially when you're not the bride. It was a warm May afternoon when we arrived at the venue. Everything was white and gold, glimmering under the soft California sun. His brother, Caleb, had spared no expense. My husband, Travis, adjusted his cufflinks with a practiced ease while I carried our daughter, Grace, on my hip. She was 7 months old, pink cheeks, and entirely unaware of the tension that hummed just beneath the surface. I hadn't wanted to come. Grace was teething, I was exhausted, and Travis had been short with me for weeks. But he insisted in that firm, unyielding voice of his. "We're not starting drama. It's my brother's wedding. Be presentable." So I pulled my hair back, wore the navy blue dress he picked out, and practiced smiling in the mirror until it looked natural. Before we dive in, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below, letting us know where you're watching from, and what time it is for you right now. We're excited to connect with all of you, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more amazing content. Now back to the story. We took our seats near the front, right behind Caleb and his new wife. Travis was glowing with pride. He always adored his brother, maybe more than he ever did me. I shifted Grace onto my lap and reached for Travis's hand. My fingers brushed his. He flinched like I'd burned him. Then he leaned in close to my ear, his voice low but cutting. "Don't embarrass me. You're just a baby carrier today. Look pretty, stay quiet." And just like that, I was hollow, like someone had scooped out everything human inside me and left only skin. I laughed lightly, hoping no one noticed, hoping no one heard. I glanced at the other wives, polished, composed, wondering if they too had been reduced to vessels for children and convenience. I didn't cry. Not then. When the speeches began, I sat in silence. His mother went first, tearfully recounting stories of the brothers growing up. His father followed with the kind of dry humor that gets polite laughs. Then it was Travis's turn. He spoke about loyalty, family tradition. His voice carried. Then, unexpectedly, the microphone was passed to me. "Would you like to say a few words?" Caleb smiled, oblivious to the storm under my skin. Travis turned to me sharply. "You don't have to," he said, more command than comfort. But I stood and smiled. I held the microphone like it was foreign, cold, awkward in my grip, and heavier than it looked. My heart thudded so loudly in my ears I almost didn't hear the hush fall across the reception hall. All eyes were on me, and Travis's were burning. I started, my voice softer than I wanted it to be. I cleared my throat, steadied myself, and tried again. "Thank you for having me speak. I wasn't planning on it, but weddings are moments, aren't they? Moments we remember." A few polite nods. "I remember my wedding," I said, glancing briefly at Travis, whose face froze in a tight smile. I was 26, nervous and hopeful. I thought I was marrying a man who saw me. Someone shifted uncomfortably at one of the tables. I smiled wider as if this were a joke and I was just warming up. I remember thinking, this is the beginning of a life together. You imagine things, don't you? Sunday mornings with coffee, baby names whispered in the dark, someone holding your hand when you're tired and your shirt stained with formula. A soft murmur rippled through the room. Travis tilted his head, a warning. But sometimes, I continued, you wake up years later and realize you're just part of the furniture. You're no longer a partner, you're an accessory or a vessel. I heard a fork clatter onto a plate. The silence deepened. Only Grace babbled in the background, clueless, innocent. My hand trembled as I held the mic tighter. I looked directly at Travis now. And sometimes the person you married, the one who once said you made them better, will flinch when you reach for them. Not because they're angry, but because they've forgotten you're human. My voice cracked slightly, but I didn't stop. "Caleb, Rachel," I turned to the bride and groom. "I hope you never forget to see each other even when life gets loud, messy, hard. Because once you stop seeing each other, it's not marriage anymore. It's performance." With that, I handed the microphone back and walked off the stage. My palms were sweaty. I didn't look at anyone. I just reached for Grace, who was now with Travis's cousin, and held her tightly to my chest. Travis didn't follow me. Not at first. When he did, it was behind the building near the parking lot, where the smell of champagne and sweat gave way to silence and cool air. "What the hell was that?" he hissed, eyes wide with controlled rage. Are you insane? I told the truth, I said quietly. He stepped closer, towering. You just embarrassed me in front of my entire family. I looked up at him. No. I reminded them I exist. His nostrils flared. Go home now. We'll talk later. He didn't offer to help with Grace. Didn't even look at her. He turned and walked back into the celebration like he hadn't left behind a woman unraveling in his shadow. I drove home alone. Grace asleep in the back seat, and for the first time in years I let myself cry without guilt. I feel like a ghost. He finally turned. You think you're a martyr now, is that it? I shook my head. No, but I'm done being invisible. He laughed bitterly. You're not going anywhere. You need me. You have no job, no savings, no plan. You're stuck. He said it calmly, like it was a fact of life, like gravity. I closed the door behind me and went back to bed. And for the first time, I let myself imagine a life without him. The next morning, I began writing lists. Not dramatic lists, not how to escape or how to ruin him. Nothing like that, just practical things. What I'd need to do to survive. Bank account, resume, daycare. It felt surreal, like I was planning someone else's move. But every bullet point brought a sliver of clarity. I'd been a graphic designer before Grace was born. Freelance, small clients, nothing glamorous but steady. I hadn't touched design software in over a year. Travis said it was unnecessary for me to work. He made enough. And besides, what kind of mother leaves her baby with strangers just to design logos for vegan bakeries? Still, I downloaded the software again, quietly, at night. The first time I opened my laptop, I cried. Not because I was sad, but because it felt like I had a piece of myself back. A real one. Not the version of me who folded towels perfectly or remembered which pacifiers Grace liked. Travis didn't notice, or if he did, he didn't ask. He started coming home later, smelling of whiskey and department store cologne. He said it was networking. I didn't ask questions. I already knew the rhythm of lies too well. One Thursday, Grace had a fever. I called Travis at work. His assistant answered. She's not well, I said. I need to take her to urgent care. There was a pause. Then Travis's voice, cold, irritated, filtered through. You can handle this. Why are you calling me for everything? I'm not, I said, stunned. This is the first time I've... In a meeting, he cut me off. Click. I bundled Grace into the car and sat in the clinic for 3 hours alone. When the nurse asked if her father was coming, I said, no, he's busy. That night, while Grace finally slept, I opened a separate bank account. I had $184 from a canceled client who forgot to delete their auto payment. It felt like a fortune. The next week, I applied for 2 freelance jobs, small projects. They paid pennies, but I didn't care. It was proof. Proof that I could still do something, that I could still be something. One of the clients, a woman named Nancy from Colorado, sent me a message after I delivered her logo. This is beautiful. You really understood what I wanted. Thank you. I stared at her words for a long time. They were simple, but no one had thanked me in months, maybe years. Travis barely spoke now, and when he did, it was short, transactional. Grace needs more wipes, we're low on formula, clean the fridge. One night, as I folded laundry, he walked in holding a shirt I hadn't ironed. You're getting sloppy, he said. I looked at him. Really looked. He hadn't aged well. He had creases around his mouth that only deepened when he was condescending. I didn't say anything, just turned back to the dryer. He stood there for a moment, maybe expecting an apology, but I didn't offer one because I wasn't his furniture anymore. 2 weeks after Grace's fever, I got a job that paid more than the others combined. A full website redesign for a nonprofit in Vermont. It wasn't glamorous, but it came with real deadlines and real money. More importantly, it came with respect. I worked on it at night after Grace was asleep. I'd sip weak coffee and work until my eyes burned. It wasn't easy, but it gave me something Travis couldn't touch. Momentum. I started hiding receipts, saving every dollar, selling old clothes online, quiet things, nothing loud. I didn't want him to notice the shift. Not yet. Then something I hadn't expected happened. An old college friend messaged me on Facebook. Hey, saw your name on a client's site. You still doing freelance work? Megan? We hadn't spoken in 6 years. Yes, I typed before I could overthink it. Late nights mostly. Baby at home, want to catch up? I'm in town next week. My stomach tightened. Travis wouldn't like that. He didn't like any woman who reminded me I had a life before him. Still, I agreed. We met at a coffee shop near the library, neutral ground. I wore makeup for the first time in months, not for vanity, but for armor. Megan looked almost exactly the same. Wavy blonde hair, sharp smile, loud laugh. "You look great," she said, hugging me. "Tired but good," I smiled. "That's motherhood." We talked about college, mutual friends, careers. I told her the sanitized version of my life. She saw through it. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "I don't mean to pry, you just seem like someone who's holding her breath." I paused, unsure how much I could say. "I'm just trying to get back to myself." Her eyes softened. "If you ever need help, real help, I'm here. My firm has a daycare stipend. We hire remote designers." "Sometimes I can float your name," she said. I blinked. "You'd do that?" She nodded. "You were the best in our class. I always thought you gave up too early." That night I didn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, remembering the version of me who dreamed of creative agencies and city lights, not diapers and clipped silence. 2 days later I submitted my resume. I didn't tell Travis. He noticed the next week when he saw a client invoice in the mail. "What's this?" he asked, holding it up like a threat. "A payment. For a project I'm working now." "You're working?" I never stopped being able to work. He stared at me, jaw clenched. "You should have talked to me." "I did," I said calmly. "You just didn't listen." He walked out of the room without a word, not yelling, not yet. That scared me more. Later I checked the locks. Then I emailed Megan back. "I'm interested. Please keep me in mind." She replied within minutes. "Already did. Interview next week." The interview was over Zoom. I wore a white blouse I hadn't touched since before Grace was born and sat in the one corner of the house where Travis's presence didn't seem to linger. The woman who interviewed me, Dana, was warm, focused, and respectful. She didn't ask about my gap year. She asked about my instincts, my process, how I balanced color theory and branding voice. For 30 minutes, I wasn't a wife, I wasn't a mother. I was just me. When we wrapped, she smiled. "We'll be in touch soon, but I'll tell you now, Megan's recommendation carried a lot of weight." The moment I logged off, I exhaled so deeply I surprised myself. Grace stirred on the baby monitor. And just like that, the spell broke. I closed the laptop, picked her up, and walked around the house with her against my chest, humming. I didn't have the job yet, but I had something better than certainty. I had hope. That night, Travis came home later than usual. His tie was loose, his eyes glassy. "Out drinking?" I asked, too tired to filter myself. He grunted. "Work stuff." I didn't press. He didn't offer more. He looked at me, then around the room, cleaner than usual, candle burning, baby asleep. He narrowed his eyes. "What are you so happy about?" "I'm not," I lied. "Just tired." He nodded slowly, as if cataloging that answer. "Well, you should be." Then he walked upstairs without another word. That week, I got the call. I was offered the job, part-time, remote, flexible hours. Starting salary, enough to build on. "Take your time to think it over," Dana said. "I don't need time," I replied. "I'm ready." And I meant it. I cried after we hung up. Not from fear, not from guilt, from relief. I called Megan to thank her. She said, "Now you just need an exit plan. You don't have to do everything at once, but you can't stay stuck." She was right. It wasn't just about work, it was about safety. Travis wasn't hitting me, he never had, but his control was a different kind of violence. Quiet, systematic, wrapped in a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The next day I applied for daycare assistance. I contacted a local women's shelter, not to stay there, but to ask about resources, just in case. I started looking at one-bedroom rentals and memorizing prices. I deleted my search history every night, hid documents in a folder labeled Grace's Growth Charts. I kept my voice light around Travis, kept the fridge full, the laundry done, never gave him a reason to squint too long in my direction. And still, one night as I passed by his office, I felt him watching me. I turned slowly. He was seated in his leather chair, hands folded, pages unreadable. "You've been busy," he said. I froze. "Work, baby. You're always doing something. For someone who used to be tired all the time, you've got a lot of energy now." I swallowed. "I guess I'm getting better at balance." He nodded once. Balance. He didn't say anything else, didn't smile, just watched as I walked away. My hands were shaking when I reached the bedroom. The morning after Travis watched me from his office, I woke up early. Grace was still asleep, her tiny chest rising and falling in a rhythm that steadied me. I poured coffee, checked my email, and found my onboarding documents from Dana waiting in my inbox. "Welcome to the team," it read. I stared at those words for a long time. They didn't just mean employment. They meant options. Options meant freedom. That day, I did something bold. I looked at an apartment, a small, older one-bedroom on the edge of town. Creaky floors, outdated cabinets, but clean, safe, and within reach. I told the manager I was just browsing, but I took pictures. I asked about deposits. I memorized the street. When I came home, Travis was in the kitchen. He looked up the moment I walked in. "You were out." It wasn't a question. "Yes," I said. "Groceries." He looked past me at the 2 small bags in my hand. Didn't seem like much. It wasn't. Just diapers and milk. He nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. That night, as I bathed Grace, I caught myself humming. I hadn't done that in months. I dried Grace off, swaddled her, and laid her in the crib. And for a brief moment I believed I could make it out cleanly, quietly. Just me and her. No explosions, no scenes. But then the phone rang. Travis answered. He said little, just short, clipped phrases. Then he handed the phone to me. "It's your mother." I hesitated. I hadn't spoken to her in weeks. Her voice was calm, but something was off. "Honey, Travis said you've been having a hard time. He told me you've been overwhelmed." My breath caught. "What?" "He's worried," she continued. "He said you've been paranoid, maybe even depressed, that you're pulling away from him and the baby. He said you're working too much." The room spun. "I'm fine," I said. "Don't listen to him. I'm just checking in," she said carefully. "Maybe talk to someone, just in case." After I hung up, I walked into the living room and stood in front of him. "You called my mother?" He didn't flinch. "She asked how you were." "You told her I was unstable." "I told her I was concerned. Which, by the way, I am." I stared at him. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you're spiraling, and if you can't see it, someone has to." It was subtle, precise, a blade in a velvet sheath. He wanted to discredit me in case I ever tried to leave. He was building a case, slowly, silently, just like everything he did. That night, I printed every document, pay stubs, emails, proof of childcare inquiries. I hid them in Grace's diaper bag, under the formula. I packed an emergency overnight kit, diapers, wipes, baby food, a change of clothes, and left it in the trunk. I told no one, because now I knew. Travis wouldn't let me walk away. He needed to keep control. And I was done being controlled. The next week passed in a blur of caution. I worked quietly during the day, rocking Grace with one hand while reviewing web layouts with the other. At night, I double-checked everything: passwords, bank statements, hiding places. I memorized addresses, numbers, license plate routes to the shelter. I spoke to no one about my plan. Not even Megan. And still, I knew something was coming. Travis's mood shifted. He stopped asking questions, stopped pretending. He'd linger in doorways, watching me without speaking. He'd shut his laptop the moment I entered a room. He'd mention our wedding album, our future, the way people do when they're trying to remind you who you used to be, who you're supposed to be. Then one night he came home with flowers, peonies, my favorite. He hadn't bought me flowers in over 2 years. "I thought maybe we could reconnect," he said, placing them in a vase like it was a peace offering. "Get back to being a team." I smiled carefully. "That's thoughtful." He poured us wine, sat beside me on the couch, his arm draped along the back, not touching, just hovering. "You've been different lately," he said. "Busier, more private." "I've had a lot on my plate," he nodded slowly. "Still, you could lean on me more. If something's wrong, you can say so." I looked at him. Really looked. This wasn't kindness. It was surveillance dressed as concern. "I'm fine," I said softly. He waited a bit too long before responding. "Good, because I think it's important we're on the same page." Later that night, I checked my phone and noticed an unfamiliar app installed, something called Secure Track. I hadn't downloaded it. My blood ran cold. I checked permissions, GPS, microphone, messages. It had access to all of them. I deleted it instantly. Then checked Grace's diaper bag. My emergency folder was gone. I didn't cry. I packed a new folder with only the essentials and hid it somewhere he'd never look. The bottom of the garbage bin under the bathroom sink, triple bagged in plastic and paper towel rolls. The next morning, I drove Grace to daycare for a trial run. The building was bright, with art on the walls and a gentle woman named Angela who welcomed us like family. I watched through the window as Grace crawled toward a stack of blocks, smiling at the other babies. For the first time, I didn't feel guilt. I felt permission. Afterward, I stopped at a gas station and paid cash for a burner phone. That night, I made a call, one I dreaded and prayed I'd never need to make. The shelter's intake coordinator answered. "I have a baby," I said, my voice shaking, "and I think I need to leave soon, maybe tonight." She didn't ask questions I couldn't answer. "We'll have a room ready," she said. "Come when it's safe." Back home, Travis was sitting at the kitchen table. His phone was face down, his eyes locked on mine. He smiled, wide and wrong. "Out again today?" "Yes," I said, "just errands. You've been doing a lot of those." I walked past him, didn't flinch when he stood up behind me, didn't show fear. But inside I knew it was almost time. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed beside him, motionless, listening to his breathing, steady, calm, as if he hadn't turned our life into a chessboard, as if he hadn't already made the first move. At 3:14 a.m., I slipped out of bed and padded to the nursery. Grace stirred, then settled back into sleep with one tiny fist curled under her cheek. I kissed her forehead. By 4, the world outside was dark and still. I wrapped her in a blanket, cradled her close, and crept out the back door. The air was cold and sharp. I felt it bite through my sweatshirt as I unlocked the car, praying the sound wouldn't carry. The emergency bag was already in the trunk. The burner phone was on, preloaded with directions to the shelter. I buckled Grace in, climbed behind the wheel, and gripped the steering wheel hard enough my knuckles went white. I didn't look back at the house, not until I saw the porch light flick on. He was standing there in the doorway, still barefoot, watching. For a moment, he didn't move. Then slowly, he stepped forward. My foot hit the gas. I didn't wait to see if he ran after us. I didn't wait to see what he would say. I drove through the quiet streets, past sleeping houses. Every red light felt like a trap. Every shadow made me flinch. At 4:43 a.m., I arrived at the shelter. Angela, not the same Angela from daycare, but another woman with the same soft steadiness, met me at the door. She didn't ask questions. She just opened her arms and led me inside. They gave Grace a portable crib, and me a room with a lock on the inside. And for the first time in what felt like years, I closed my eyes without fear. I didn't know what tomorrow would look like. I didn't know how the custody hearings would go, or what stories Travis would tell. But I knew this. We were gone. We were safe. And I was not going back. 2 weeks later, I stood in a borrowed dress with a microphone in my hand again. Caleb had called. He said, "Anna and I wanted you to speak. What you said at our wedding, people are still talking about it." I almost laughed, but I agreed. The reception was smaller this time, just a post-wedding dinner for extended family and friends who couldn't travel. Travis was there. Of course he was. He stood at the back, arms folded, pretending I didn't exist. He'd already begun spreading his version of the story, that I'd had a breakdown, that I'd abandoned him. He told his mother I was in a facility. He told mine that I'd taken Grace without permission. But none of that mattered now, because I had documentation. I had witnesses. I had a lawyer, a kind, fierce woman who saw through Travis in minutes. The family court process had just begun, and it would take months, maybe more. But today was mine. I took a deep breath and began. When I spoke at their wedding, I said that marriage is about seeing each other. And I meant that. But what I didn't say then, what I didn't have the strength to say, is that sometimes you have to see yourself first, because no one else is going to do it for you. A quiet stillness swept the room. I spent years thinking I was less, that I was meant to shrink, to stay silent, to survive. I thought if I did everything right, love would come back. That cruelty was a phase, that coldness was stress, but it wasn't. I looked up. Travis hadn't moved, but his jaw was tight. "I left," I said clearly, "and it was the hardest thing I've ever done, not because I didn't love, but because I finally loved myself more than someone else's comfort." No one clapped. No one needed to. The silence held the weight of truth. I handed the microphone back, walked off the stage, and as I passed Travis, I looked him in the eye for the first time in months. He said nothing, because there was nothing left to say. Back at the shelter that night, I held Grace against my chest and whispered the same 3 words over and over into her soft hair. "We are free."